The coffin was already sealed when the priest asked if anyone wanted to speak. Silence, thick, earned. I stood up before my conscience could stop me. "I will," I said, and my voice didn't shake. That's when the room finally looked at me, her least favorite grandchild, the one she'd tried to erase, quietly, legally, forever. I stepped to the podium and smiled like I was forgiving her. I wasn't. I was finishing something she started. I told them she loved roses. I told them she valued discipline. I told them she believed suffering made people strong. All true, just not the way they thought. I spoke gently, beautifully, falsely. I praised the monster like a saint. I watched the room relax. I watched them nod. I watched my uncles unclench their fists. I watched my mother cry, not for the woman in the box, but for the version I invented. That was my first revenge, letting them grieve a lie. When I stepped down, her lawyer was waiting. "Congratulations," he whispered, smiling like a man who'd just solved a puzzle. "You just passed her final test." She didn't raise me, she curated me. My grandmother believed love was leverage. She fed it sparingly, like medicine with side effects. When I was 10, she taught me how to sign my name perfectly. When I was 12, she taught me how to keep secrets. When I was 16, she taught me how to lose without crying. "Composure," she'd say, tapping my forehead, "is power." I thought she was preparing me for life. She was preparing me for war. The betrayal didn't come as a scream. It came as paperwork, a letter from her firm, polite, surgical, informing me I was no longer a beneficiary of anything. Not the house, not the trust, not even the watch she wore like a threat. The reason cited was lack of demonstrated loyalty. Loyalty from the woman who rewrote her will every time someone disappointed her before dessert. I didn't confront her. I watched. I noticed how she invited me less, how my cousins suddenly had college funds and I had silence, how my calls went unanswered, but my achievements still reached her ears, filtered through relatives who took credit for my discipline. Then I found the clause, hidden, deliberate, cruel. Any heir who challenged her decisions, legally or emotionally, would be disqualified permanently. She wasn't punishing defiance, she was testing restraint. That's when I understood. This wasn't abandonment, it was bait. So I swallowed my pride. I visited her. I listened. I nodded. I played the role of the grateful, overlooked grandchild. I praised her stories. I asked her advice. I learned her tells, the way her left eye twitched when she lied, the way she smiled when someone disappointed her, because disappointment proved superiority. I never asked about the will. Instead, I prepared for the ending she was engineering. I studied law at night. I tracked asset transfers. I memorized her shell companies. I documented the emotional abuse, dates, witnesses, patterns. Not to expose her, to understand her language. She spoke in leverage, so I learned to answer fluently. When she died, no one cried out loud. They cried privately, guiltily, like people afraid to admit relief. No one wanted to speak because no one wanted to lie publicly, except me. I lied with precision because I knew she'd be listening, from wherever control addicts go when they die. The lawyer took me into a side room after the service. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name in her handwriting, sharp, commanding, final. Inside was a single sentence: "If you spoke kindly, I understood me." The addendum followed. She'd left everything to a trust. The trust had conditions. The conditions required an executor who demonstrated emotional control under provocation. Someone who could honor appearances without betraying strategy. Me. I didn't inherit her money. I inherited authority over everything. By the end of the month, I restructured the trust, perfectly legally. I enforced performance clauses my cousins had ignored. I audited the businesses my uncles had been bleeding dry. I froze accounts. I redistributed stipends based on compliance, not blood. They called me cruel. I smiled. They said I was becoming her. They were wrong. I wasn't punishing them for failing her standards. I was liberating the assets from her cruelty. Scholarships replaced bribes. Charities replaced vanity foundations. The house was sold. The watch went to a museum with a plaque that told the truth. And the clause, the one about loyalty, I dissolved it. Because loyalty earned through fear isn't loyalty, it's hostage-taking. The final confrontation came quietly. My mother asked me late one night if I felt guilty. I thought of the coffin, the lie, the test. No, I said. I feel finished. My grandmother believed control was the highest form of love. I proved her wrong at her funeral. I gave her the eulogy she wanted and the ending she didn't expect. Composure is power, but mercy is choice, and this time I was the one deciding who deserved it.